He absolutely destroyed the defense secretary, exposing a deployment scandal they never wanted the public to hear. When the excuses collapsed and the contradictions spilled out, it revealed something far darker. And you're about to watch the moment the truth broke open.
Thank you, Chairman General Calvert.
That's right.
Thanks to the witnesses for being here.
Yes, okay, Private, go ahead.
The clock's still moving, Mr. Secretary, I want to express my severe concern with the deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles without consultation of the state of California. There have been photographs that have shown these troops sleeping on the floor and have not been provided fuel, food, or water by DOD. How long will this deployment last, and why were we unprepared to provide them basic necessities such as food and water?
The commanders and troops on the field are very well prepared, sir. They responded incredibly rapidly to a deteriorating situation with equipment and capabilities. We have made sure from the top down, as a Secretary of Defense who's been in a unit holding riot shields outside the White House during the chaos of the summer of 2020. I know what it's like to be immediately deployed into a situation like that. There are moments where you make do as best you can temporarily, but we are ensuring they're housed, fed, water capabilities in real time from my office, because I care that much about the California Guard and the Marines and the men and women who are supporting our ICE agents on the ground.
You should check
it's
with your
true
office.
Every day, and that's a disingenuous attack that misrepresents how much we care about our troops and what they're doing to defend ICE agents. I'm not going to take the fact that we don't care about the troops. Nobody cares more about the troops at the top than this Secretary and the Chairman and our
How long will
department.
the deployment last?
We stated very publicly that it's 60 days. Because we want to ensure that those rioters, looters, and thugs on the other side assaulting our police officers know that we're not going anywhere. We're here to maintain the peace on behalf of law enforcement officers in Los Angeles, which Gavin Newsom won't do.
What is the estimated cost of the deployment for the Guard and the Marines to L.A., and where's this funding coming from? Will it be coming from quality of life programs that affect our service members or our families? If you want to wait till I finish.
Before I hand it to
such as updates, housing, and barracks.
Before I hand it to Bryn, the insinuation that we're pulling money from housing and barracks in order to fund this is disingenuous and incorrect.
I'm just asking.
Bryn can give you the numbers, absolutely.
So the current estimated cost is $134 million, which is largely just TDY costs, travel, housing, food, etc.
Where's it coming from? That's the cost, but where's it coming from?
Out of their O&M accounts.
With the most recent deployment of the Marines, Mr. Secretary, what's the justification for using the military for civilian law enforcement purposes in L.A.? Why are you sending war fighters to cities to interact with civilians?
Every American citizen deserves to live in a community that's safe, and ICE agents need to be able to do their job. They're being attacked for doing their job, which is deporting illegal criminals. That should happen in any city, Minneapolis or Los Angeles. And if they're attacked, that's lawless, and President Trump believes in law and order. So he has every authority, and he has done mobilizing National Guard or active duty troops under U.S. code to protect federal agents in their job, which is exactly what we're doing, and we're proud to do it. We're proud to do it.
10 U.S.C. of the U.S. Code 12406 as a legal basis that the President used cites 3 examples and circumstances for the Guard: invasion by a foreign nation, rebellion or dangerous rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States, or the President is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Which authority is triggered here to justify the use?
I don't know. You just read it yourself, and people can listen themselves, but it sounds like all 3 to me. If you've got millions of illegals and you don't know where they're coming from, they're waving flags from foreign countries and assaulting police officers and law enforcement officers, that's the problem.
The laws of the United States?
No, the governor of California is unable to execute the laws of the United States.
The president, you said all
the
3
governor
apply.
of the California has failed to protect his people, along with the mayor of Los Angeles, and so President Trump has said he will protect our agents, and our Guard and Marines are proud to do it.
The law also says, Mr. Secretary, that the orders for these purposes shall be issued through governors of the states.
You and I both know that President Trump has all the authorities necessary, and thankfully he's willing to do it on behalf of the citizens of Los Angeles, on behalf of our ICE agents, and behalf of our country.
We've also pulled $1 billion for the border as well. So this just goes into the same fund, 134.
Congressman, what's the
134 million? I was asking Ms. McDonald.
Okay.
134 134 million goes on top of the billion that's been pulled for the
So
board?
the funding that was pulled for this year was largely in FSRM, and in this budget, we're actually looking to plus that funding back up to backfill that for our troops and for their families.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman. Mr. Valadeo.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, General. Thank you, Ms. McDonald, for being here.
What you just witnessed wasn't just a heated exchange. It was a rare moment where power was confronted with its own contradictions in real time. A member of Congress pressed the defense secretary on a secretive deployment of National Guard troops into Los Angeles, and instead of clarity, we saw deflection, anger, political spin, and an unmistakable panic beneath the surface. This was not a routine oversight hearing. It was a window into a government operating on instinct, improvisation, and intimidation rather than lawful authority. The congressman asked a simple question. Why were American troops deployed into a major U.S. city without the consent of the state's governor? Something the law requires, something the Constitution protects, something our entire system is built on? Instead of an answer, he was met with a defensive tirade designed to silence the question rather than address it. Think about what that reveals. When institutions react with rage instead of transparency, what does that usually mean? Why does a public official feel the need to lecture Congress about caring for the troops instead of providing facts about why those troops were photographed sleeping on floors without food, water, or adequate support? Why did the secretary shift from operational details to partisan attacks on California's governor within seconds of being pressed? These aren't rhetorical tricks. They're symptoms of a deeper breakdown. Systems of power protect themselves first, and only themselves. And that's exactly what we saw in this clip. The defense secretary insisted that the deployment was lawful under a statute designed for foreign invasion, rebellion, or the failure of local authorities to enforce federal law. But ask yourself, were the people he described as rioters, looters, and thugs an invading foreign army? Were they an armed rebellion against the United States government? Or was this administration simply stretching the limits of executive power because they felt they could get away with it? That's the real scandal here. Not just the cost overruns, not just the lack of planning, not just the soldiers sleeping on the floor. The real scandal is how casually the administration treated the legal thresholds for military deployment on U.S. soil, thresholds that exist because our founders feared exactly this, the use of troops as a political tool. And look closely at how the secretary framed it. He claimed millions of illegals and foreign flags justified military action. That isn't a legal argument. It's a political slogan. It reduces human beings to talking points and tries to turn immigration debate into justification for domestic militarization. This is where the emotional impact becomes impossible to ignore. Real people, families, communities, American citizens live in the crosshairs of these decisions. Troops without proper meals weren't props. They were young Americans, many barely out of training, suddenly sent into a volatile civilian environment without proper housing, planning, or legal clarity. Meanwhile, the administration demanded billions more for border operations while pulling money from barracks and housing, only to deny it when confronted. If that contradiction doesn't alarm you, why not? If the Secretary of Defense cannot explain which legal authority he is using, how can the American public trust that authority won't be abused again? And if governors can be bypassed whenever politically convenient, what happens to state sovereignty, the separation of powers, and the fundamental idea that no one, not even a president, is above the Constitution? This is how democratic norms erode, not with one dramatic moment, but with countless smaller ones where officials push boundaries, dodge accountability, and normalize the abnormal. And if you felt anger watching this, you should. If you felt confusion, that's intentional. Confusion is a tool of power. If you felt concern about how quickly the secretary pivoted from legal reasoning to partisan rhetoric, that's your instinct telling you that something here didn't add up. But there's also empathy in this story. Empathy for the troops placed in impossible situations. Empathy for communities forced to navigate militarization they didn't ask for. Empathy for the Americans who simply want institutions that serve them, not political agendas. This moment wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a clash over the meaning of lawful power in a democracy. Oversight exists for moments like this. Congress asks questions because, without oversight, secrecy becomes standard and accountability disappears. And when institutions refuse to answer, we must ask, what are they afraid of? What is being hidden? And who is paying the price? If the administration had followed the law, they would proudly say so. If they had coordinated with the governor, they would show the paperwork. If they had fully resourced the troops, they would present the logistics. But they did none of that. Instead, the secretary adopted a posture of moral outrage. because moral outrage is easier than answering inconvenient questions. And that is exactly why this moment matters. Because democracy depends on public officials being willing to answer hard questions from the people's representatives. Because the Constitution was written to prevent the military from becoming a pawn in partisan conflict. Because institutions should never be allowed to redefine legality just because it's politically useful. And because at the center of all this, beyond the politics, beyond the posturing, are real consequences for real Americans. So the question now is, will Congress back down? Or will they push harder? Will the truth come out? Or will this be another scandal buried under political noise and institutional self-protection? These are the stakes. This is the moment. And this is why your voice matters. Share this video. Spread the truth. Call out the abuses. And if you're new here, hit subscribe, stay loud, and stay engaged. Because accountability only exists when we demand it.